In the dark and twisted forests of medieval Europe, there lived a knight named Sir Cedric. He was known throughout the land for his bravery and his skill with a sword. One night, as he was riding through the forest on his trusty steed, he heard a blood-curdling scream. Sir Cedric spurred his horse forward, following the sound of the scream. As he rode deeper into the forest, the trees grew denser and the underbrush thicker. The darkness closed in around him, and he could hear the rustling of leaves and the snapping of twigs beneath his horse's hooves. Suddenly, he saw a figure emerge from the shadows. It was a creature unlike any he had ever seen before. It was tall and muscular, with long, pointed ears and glowing yellow eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness. Its skin was a sickly green color, and it had razor-sharp teeth that gleamed in the moonlight. Sir Cedric drew his sword, ready to do battle with the creature. But as he charged forward, he realized that he was no match for the creature's strength. It easily dodged his blows and landed crushing blows on his armor. Sir Cedric tried to retreat, but the creature was relentless. It chased him through the forest, its glowing eyes fixed on him like a predator stalking its prey. Sir Cedric could feel his heart racing as he tried to outrun the creature, but it seemed to be gaining on him with each passing moment. Just as he thought all hope was lost, Sir Cedric saw a glimmer of light in the distance. It was a small village, and he knew that he could take refuge there. He urged his horse forward, hoping to make it to the village before the creature caught up with him. As he reached the edge of the village, Sir Cedric could hear the sounds of chaos and destruction. He saw that the creature had already arrived, and was wreaking havoc among the villagers. Sir Cedric knew that he had to act quickly if he was going to save the village and its inhabitants. He charged forward, his sword flashing in the moonlight. The creature turned to face him, baring its teeth and growling menacingly. Sir Cedric fought with all his might, but the creature was too strong. It knocked him to the ground and loomed over him, ready to deliver the killing blow. But just as the creature was about to strike, a group of villagers rushed forward, armed with pitchforks and torches. They surrounded the creature, driving it back with their makeshift weapons. Sir Cedric seized the opportunity and scrambled to his feet, joining the villagers in their fight against the creature. Together, they fought valiantly, driving the creature back into the depths of the forest. When the battle was over, the villagers thanked Sir Cedric for his bravery and courage. He had saved their village from certain destruction. As he rode away from the village, Sir Cedric couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lay hidden in the dark and twisted forests of medieval Europe. He knew that he would have to be vigilant, always ready to face the unknown and the terrifying creatures that lurked in the shadows. Days went by, and Sir Cedric couldn't shake the memory of the creature from his mind. He knew that there were other dangers out there, waiting for him to face them. So he set out on a new quest, determined to protect the innocent and vanquish any evil that crossed his path. As he rode through the countryside, Sir Cedric encountered all manner of creatures and monsters. He battled werewolves, fought off vampires, and even faced down a dragon. Each time, he emerged victorious, his sword flashing in the sunlight as he delivered the final blow. But as Sir Cedric continued on his journey, he began to feel a sense of unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else out there, something more dangerous than any creature he had faced before. One night, as he camped in the forest, he heard a faint whispering sound. It was like nothing he had ever heard before, a soft and eerie voice that seemed to come from all around him. He drew his sword, ready to face whatever was out there. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, tall and slender, with long flowing hair that cascaded down her back. Her eyes were a bright green, and they seemed to glow in the darkness. She wore a long flowing gown that shimmered in the moonlight. Sir Cedric was taken aback by her beauty, but he knew that appearances could be deceiving. He drew his sword, ready to do battle with the mysterious woman. But as he raised his sword, the woman spoke. Her voice was soft and hypnotic, and it seemed to wrap around him like a warm blanket. "Do not fear me, brave knight," she said. "I mean you no harm. I have come to offer you a gift that will make you stronger than any creature you have ever faced." Sir Cedric was skeptical, but he listened as the woman spoke. She told him of a magical potion, one that would give him the strength and the power to defeat any enemy he faced. Sir Cedric was intrigued. He had never heard of such a potion before, but he knew that he needed every advantage he could get in his fight against the forces of evil. So he accepted the woman's gift, and she handed him a small vial of liquid. "Drink this," she said, "and you will see the power that it holds." Sir Cedric raised the vial to his lips, and drank the liquid inside. Immediately he felt a surge of energy coursing through his veins. He felt stronger than he had ever felt before, his senses sharper and his mind clearer. As he mounted his horse and rode off into the night, Sir Cedric knew that he had been given a gift unlike any other. He knew that he would need it in the battles to come, and that he would never forget the mysterious woman who had given it to him. Sir Cedric rode on for days, feeling invigorated by the potion he had been given. He fought off countless creatures and monsters, his sword flashing in the sunlight as he rode through the countryside. But as time went on, he began to feel a strange sensation in his body. It was like a burning fire, coursing through his veins and making his head spin. He tried to shake it off, but the sensation only grew stronger. One night, as he camped by the river, he felt something stir within him. It was like a second presence, something dark and malevolent that seemed to be taking control of his body. He tried to fight it, but it was too strong. It overpowered him, taking control of his mind and his actions. Sir Cedric felt himself transforming into something else, something not quite human. He grew taller and stronger, his skin turning a sickly green color like the creature he had faced in the forest. He realized with horror that the potion he had been given was not a gift, but a curse. It had turned him into the very thing he had been fighting against, a creature of darkness and evil. Sir Cedric was now the very thing he had been sworn to destroy, a monster that preyed upon the innocent and the helpless. He rode off into the night, consumed by his new identity as a monster. His sword was no longer a weapon of justice and honor, but a tool of destruction and death. As he roamed the countryside, he left a trail of devastation and destruction in his wake. Villagers cowered in fear at the sound of his approach, and parents warned their children to stay indoors at night. Sir Cedric had become the very embodiment of evil, a night-turned monster, doomed to wander the land for all eternity, a warning to all who dared to seek power beyond their control. It was a dark and stormy night in the year of our Lord 1320. The villagers of Ravenwood huddled in their thatched cottages, afraid to venture out into the tempestuous weather. The wind howled like a pack of wolves, and the rain lashed against the windows with the force of a battering ram. The only light came from the flickering candles and the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the sky. In the midst of this chaos, a lone traveler stumbled into town. He was tall and gaunt, with a face that was haggard and weathered. He wore a tattered cloak that flapped in the wind and clung to his emaciated frame. His eyes were dark and sunken, and he looked as if he hadn't slept in days. The villagers watched as he staggered into the town square, his boots squelching in the mud. "Who goes there?" one of the villagers called out, his voice trembling with fear. The traveler raised his head and fixed his dark gaze on the speaker. "I seek shelter for the night," he rasped, his voice hoarse and cracked. The villagers exchanged nervous glances. They knew better than to offer hospitality to strangers in these dangerous times, but the storm was too fierce to turn him away. They directed him to the inn, a ramshackle building that leaned drunkenly to one side. The traveler nodded his thanks and shuffled off into the night. As he entered the inn, the landlord eyed him warily. "We don't get many travelers in these parts," he said, his voice low and gruff. "What brings you to Ravenwood?" The traveler didn't answer. He simply nodded and made his way up to his room, leaving the landlord to grumble under his breath. The room was small and damp, with a single bed and a flickering candle on the bedside table. The traveler sank down onto the bed and let out a deep sigh. He had been on the road for days, and the storm had sapped what little energy he had left. As he lay there, he heard strange noises coming from the walls. Scratching, scurrying sounds that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He tried to ignore them and close his eyes, but the sounds grew louder and more persistent. It was as if something was trying to claw its way out of the walls. Suddenly there was a loud thud at the door. The traveler sat bolt upright, his heart racing. He heard a muffled voice on the other side, speaking in a language he didn't understand. He crept over to the door and pressed his ear against it, trying to make out the words. "Let me in," the voice said, sounding desperate. "Please, let me in." The traveler hesitated. He didn't know who was on the other side of the door, or what their intentions were, but the voice sounded sincere, and the storm was still raging outside. He decided to take a chance and opened the door a crack. A hand shot out from the darkness and grabbed him by the throat. The traveler gasped and stumbled backwards, clutching at his neck. The hand belonged to a woman, or at least it had once. Her skin was pale and clammy, and her eyes were dark and hollow. Her hair was stringy and matted, and she wore a tattered dress that was soaked through with rain. "Who are you?" the traveler croaked, trying to break free from her grasp. "I am a victim," she hissed, her breath hot and fetid. "A victim of the witch hunters." The traveler recoiled in horror. He had heard tales of the witch hunters, the fanatical men who roamed the land in search of those accused of practicing dark magic. They were known to be ruthless and merciless, burning their victims at the stake without mercy. The woman's presence filled him with dread, and he struggled to free himself from her grasp. But the woman was surprisingly strong, and she held on tight. "Please," she begged, her eyes pleading. "I need your help. They're coming for me." The traveler looked past her and saw a group of men approaching the inn. They wore long robes and carried torches and pitchforks, their faces twisted in hatred. He knew they were the witch hunters, come to execute their grisly mission. The traveler knew he had to act fast. He grabbed the woman by the hand and pulled her into his room, slamming the door shut behind them. He quickly barred the door with a chair and scanned the room for a weapon. His eyes fell on the candle on the bedside table, and he grabbed it, using it as a makeshift club. The woman cowered in the corner, her eyes wide with fear. "Please," she whispered, "don't let them take me." The traveler nodded grimly, his mind racing. He knew that the witch hunters would stop at nothing to carry out their mission. He could hear them pounding on the door, their voices shouting obscenities and threats. He knew that if he didn't act quickly, they would break through the door and drag the woman away. He took a deep breath and flung open the door, swinging the candle with all his might. The flame connected with the head of the first witch hunter, sending him sprawling to the ground. The others surged forward, their weapons raised, but the traveler fought back with a fury, swinging the candle and dodging their blows. The fight was fierce and bloody, with both sides taking heavy losses. But in the end, the traveler emerged victorious, standing over the bodies of his fallen enemies. The woman watched in awe, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Thank you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for saving me." The traveler nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. The storm had abated, and the sky outside was clear. He knew he had to leave Ravenwood before the witch hunters regrouped and came after him. He grabbed his pack and slung it over his shoulder, turning to leave. But the woman grabbed his arm, her eyes pleading. "Please," she said, "don't leave me alone. Take me with you." The traveler hesitated. He knew that it was dangerous to travel with a suspected witch, but he also knew that he couldn't leave her alone. He nodded and gestured for her to follow him, and they set off into the night, their fate uncertain.